Hey guys, welcome to the Scholar Online YouTube channel, the channel that is all about learning. Before we get started with this week's tutorial, let's just get through the administration. In this video, if you scroll at the bottom of the video, you're going to find a description box. Please go and open that description box because you're going to find a lot of useful information. If I say to you, I'm going to link it in the description, that's where you're going to find it. And I will probably also include timestamps so you can jump across different parts of the video so that you can go forward and backwards, and even if you come back in future, you can find specific sections of the video, right? Remember to like this video. Please subscribe to our channel because it really helps with the algorithm so that this video can be accessed by many more people who actually search for it. So the more you watch, the more you interact, the more you like, the more you subscribe, the more YouTube is going to show this video to even more people, all right? So let's get started with today's lesson. Now, before we can get started, I just need to cover how to actually get yourself a Stripe account in case you don't already have one. Now, this might take a few minutes to a couple of days to a couple of weeks, depending on where you are based, all right? If you want to use Stripe to accept payments on your website, you need to come from one of these countries. So Stripe is only supported in 46 countries across the world. And I'm going to link this in the description below so that you can look for your country and see if Stripe is active in your country. So these countries you see here, from Australia to United Kingdom to Brazil to United Arab Emirates, you need to be originating from one of these countries. You need to have a bank account in one of these countries and a registered business in one of these countries in order to be able to accept Stripe payments. Now, if you're like me and you come from South Africa, and you do not have a bank account in one of these countries, and you do not have a registered business in one of these countries, you cannot use Stripe directly. However, there's a solution, all right? So this is how I managed to incorporate Stripe into my business by using a service that Stripe itself offers, all right, called Stripe Atlas. Now, Stripe Atlas is a sub-service of Stripe itself that allows you to actually incorporate your business in Delaware, United States, so that you can get a US registered business and a US address, and then you can open a US bank account, and then you can start to integrate Stripe payments directly to your website. You understand? So if you don't originate from one of these countries, the only other way to get Stripe to work for you is through Stripe Atlas. Now, Stripe Atlas is very, very easy and probably one of the cheapest one of the cheapest companies that offer this service. There's other businesses and other services out there. If you just open a Google window and say, companies, services to help me register a business in, I don't know, Delaware, UK, whatever, you can just Google that and you'll see there's a lot of businesses that offer this service. But out of all the businesses, and based on my experience, Stripe Atlas does it the cheapest and definitely the most efficient. So you'll definitely get a business registered within I think just a few weeks, and it costs I don't know, I think at the time when I did it, it was about $500 to do this, but it will be the cheapest that you'll pay based on other, compared to other people. And what Stripe Atlas also offers is then they'll provide you an address, and then they'll provide you a support service, which means annually you'll be paying that amount. You'll be paying, I think, a lesser amount, but because you register a business in Delaware, you need to have a local representative where that will be able to accept letters on your behalf and things like that. So you need an address. So if you're not based in the US, you need a company to assist to receive those letters and sign for them, or something like that, to confirm that the address is valid. Now, Stripe Atlas offers that service as well, which means that you will continue to pay them annually for them to provide you with the address and the service of having a local registered agent to manage your business locally, because you'll be based in a different country. You understand? Now, I will link this in the description below. All you need to do is to say start company and go through the process. I'm not going to cover this in the video, but it's very straightforward. It's very self-explanatory. You'll enter your details, your business, your information and everything, and then you'll pay the required amount, and then Stripe Atlas will go ahead and they will register your business for you. After they've done that, then you can go back to Stripe you can go back to Stripe, and then you can activate payments once you have received a US a registration, a company. But the other thing that you also need with this is a US bank account, of course. So once you've done this, you need, and Stripe will give you a list of possible banks that you can choose from. They really help you through the process, and you can pick just one of those banks. And a lot of those banks are already used to working with people that are not based there, so they'll issue you a digital card. They'll do a lot of things that you don't have to physically be present in the country to be able to sign for papers to open a bank account, right? You can do everything online. It's really, really advanced. And there'll be a list of them. One of the ones that I use is Mercury, all right? And this is just a suggestion. You don't have to use Mercury, but you can use any other one. But what I love about Mercury is that it works directly with Stripe, which means inside of your Stripe, you can even just, do a what we call you can do like a connection, so that every time you accept payments via Stripe, the money goes directly into a Mercury bank account. So everything is done seamlessly for you. And with Mercury, you can open the bank account directly online. You don't have to be physically in the US. The process is very, very straightforward, and I think they do this for a lot of clients that are global based. And they issue digital cards, which means you can have a US bank credit card, the numbers, everything, and you can use it to make payments online without actually having a physical card, right? But you can also get a physical card mailed to you anywhere in the world. It really depends on what exactly you want, whether you want a digital or a physical card. The only thing is that you're going to have to figure out how to actually expropriate the funds from your US bank account to your local bank account, and that I will leave to you to manage with your lawyers and make sure that you do everything legally, the correct way of doing that, right? And the one other thing that I want to mention about Stripe Atlas before I let go is, although you're going to use Stripe Atlas service, I do highly recommend that if you start actually accepting payments, that you perhaps get legal assistance, especially when it comes to tax matters, so that you make sure that you're paying the required, value added tax, and you're paying the required, revenue tax to the right authorities. Stripe Atlas will give you sort of like, they will send you like updates, and they'll say things like, they'll send you updates like, your tax is due, and they'll give you the link of where to go and submit the documentation, but they won't actually take you through the process. You might actually need a consultant, a tax consultant, to assist you with that. So if you're actually making revenue, when you get to that point, you might need a little bit of assistance. But Stripe Atlas definitely gives you enough prompts in advance, and they'll give you emails. They will let you know when something is due. And they will manage your transactions within your Stripe account, so that when you reach the threshold where you need to start paying value-added tax, they will let you know that, okay, in this country, you've reached a limit where you need to start paying value-added tax. Okay, and then they'll give you links where you can go and register to start paying value-added tax in those countries, and then they will manage it even in the payments ways, in their payment processing, so that you include and you show the client that actually this is now how much I'm charging, and this is how much is going to go towards value-added tax, and then you can collect that money, of course, and then later on do the value-added tax, payment. But again, I like to stress, if you actually start accepting payments, it would be advisable that you get a third-party professional tax consultant or accountant to assist you to make sure that you cover your tax obligations, because you don't want to then get into trouble, accepting payments in all different countries. All right. So far, this just covers how to actually get started. So once you've got your Stripe Atlas a company registered, you need to go and get a bank account, and then you link that bank account to your Stripe, and then you're going to come back here, and then you're going to add all this information. So you create a new business profile, and then you'll enter all the business information. The most important thing that you're going to get from Stripe Atlas is going to be a business name based in the United States. You're going to get an employer identification number that goes with that business, and you're going to get a business address. So this information that fits into this page, you will get directly from Stripe Atlas. They will send you all the documentation that you need that has all of these numbers and everything that you need, and you can enter that. And then once you're done that, You can enter your details as a business representative. You can go business owners, public details, and then this is where you'll add your bank account. So this is where, for example, you will now pick one of these banks to work with, right? And like I said, in my case, for example, I chose to say, okay, I work with Mercury, and then you'll be able to like link Mercury directly in here. And then what that will do, that it will allow the payments to go directly from your bank account into, and then you'll secure, and then, so that you're the only one who can log in. But I'm not going to cover all of this now because I'm not registering a new business. I'm just showing you how to get started, right? So once you've done all of that and you've activated a business profile on Stripe, and you've got a bank account ready, then you can continue with the video to learn how to actually build the integration into an existing application using Python. Okay, so let's get straight into what we're going to cover when it comes to, what I'm going to teach you with regards to, to the Stripe API integration. Definitely, this is going to be more than a one video tutorial because there's actually quite a lot to cover. And in this channel, we like to go into the details of explaining things so that by the time you finish watching this video, you know exactly what you're doing and you're not just copying and pasting code. So what we're going to try and cover today is how to just create a basic payment. And going through the Stripe documentation, there is a way you can do it with code, and there's a way you can do it with the no code options. We are, of course, a coding YouTube channel, so we're going to definitely cover how you can do it with code. We'll go through the documentation that Stripe offers, and we'll take you through that and show you how you can do that following the documentation and everything we found going through the documentation ourselves. Then, obviously, what is of interest to a lot of people in this channel is how to create subscription and sort of recurring payments. I don't think we'll get to that today, but it will definitely be in one of the future tutorials. But an API integration with Stripe would not be complete if I don't show you how to do a subscription. So definitely we will have a video that covers exactly how you can do Stripe subscriptions. Then we look at using the Stripe pricing table. So the Stripe pricing table is a very, very useful piece of sort of like, feature that comes out of Stripe where you don't actually have to do a lot of coding. You can build a pricing table within the dashboard of the Stripe, within your personalized Stripe dashboard, and then you can just get like 1 or 2 lines of code that you can embed into any website, and then you have a working pricing table, which is a really good way of integrating Stripe, probably one of the easiest way to do it, and we'll cover that in one of the future tutorials. We look at the customer interface, how you create a customer page. This allows clients who are existing, especially when it comes to subscriptions, clients can go and like manage their subscriptions if they want to change their credit card information, update their customer information. All of that is covered and hosted by Stripe, but I'll show you how to get that implemented into your projects. And then one of the most important ones, of course, a Stripe integration is not complete, especially if you're building it into an existing application without webhooks. Webhooks is how Stripe communicates back to you within a programmatic way so that you can understand when certain events have happened. So useful events that you want to track are things like when somebody has made a payment and you want to perhaps track that so that you can issue them an invoice, or maybe you want to update your system to show that this person has made a payment and you want to do that, programmatically. You need to get webhooks working. And then finally, we'll go into the details of subscription. So this is going to be a full sort of video tutorial, sort of what we call a playlist. We're not going to cover everything here today, but today we're going to do the most basic of all, is just how to accept a payment. So now you've got your Stripe account working, you've got a business, and you just want to get money, right? You want to collect money, and I'll show you 2 ways to do it. The first way is how to do it with code, but perhaps the easier way is to start using the no code method, right? Because obviously maybe you're not a coder and you just created an account and you just want to manage a few payments here and there, and you want to get a no code option of doing it, right? So I will link this in the description below because this is very, very useful, and there is a pre-built way in which you can do that. So let me just go to the no code page and say sell and get paid online, and I'm going to open this over here. There it is, and this is the page. So what you need to do, first of all, you need to make sure that you're logged in to your Stripe account, because Stripe documentation is one of those smart documentation. Not many businesses do it, but Stripe does it really, really well, which means if you have a Stripe account, I'm using a test account. So once you've logged in and you've managed all your things and you've like integrated and everything is working, you will have a dashboard that looks like this, right? This is, as you can see over here, is a test dashboard for one of my Stripe accounts. And to get to a test dashboard, you can just at the very top on the dashboard, there's a test mode, which is a toggle. You can go from test to non-test, right? So for the purposes of what we're doing, just make sure you have it on test, because we're going to be using the test systems. But once you figured it out on test, you can then duplicate the exact same thing into the production environment. So for now, we are in the test mode. So make sure your test mode is open. Make sure you are logged into your Stripe dashboard. Make sure you're in the correct business, because you could have multiple businesses within Stripe. Make sure you've logged into the correct business and you're in the test mode and everything is working. Then you can go to the documentation that I'm going to show you, right? So once you open the documentation, it's smart documentation, which means it actually connects to your Stripe account and gets, your pricing, your keys, everything that you already have in your price account, so that you don't have to worry about, now, how do I, you can do documentation, but then you still have to figure out how to then go get the key from your dashboard to paste it into the documentation. So what the smart documentation does for you is that it manages all of that. So when you reach now this documentation page, all you need to do is to create a product. You can even do it. It's an interactive documentation page. You can do it here and immediately get a payment link. Of course, you can do this directly from the dashboard as well, but of course, I love doing it via the payment link. And this is probably the easiest way to show this to you. So make sure you're logged in and then come to this link that I will put in the description below. If you don't know how to get to this link, if you're in the Stripe Docs page, Stripe Docs, at the top, there are tabs over there. You've got home, payments, automation, banking, developer. Make sure you go to no code. Then inside of a no code, you can go into create payment links. All right. So there's many other no code options, like for subscriptions, invoices, creating a buy button, and all of them are interactive. So you can work with them on the website. So I'll do just a payment link because I just want to collect a payment. All right. So when you scroll down, you're gonna choose whether you want to do a product or a service, a subscription. So you're gonna stick with a product or service. So let's say you want to sell red shoes. All right. So I'm gonna put in here red shoes. This is what we want to sell, and then you can put in a price. Right. So let's say my red shoes cost $100. Right, which means when somebody goes into here, into your Stripe payment page, they will see how much you are charging them, and then they'll be able to immediately pay, right? And then that's as simple as it is. And then you just click this button that says create payment link, and it's going to create a payment link for you, and it takes you to the payment link page and you get your link. All right. So, okay, so there's some customization required over here. So, but it's all straightforward, So it takes you to the payment link page. We've said we want red shoes. You can let customers adjust quantity. So you can click this yes or no. So people can choose, do I want to buy 1 shoe, 2 shoes, 3 shoes? That's possible. If it's something like a product that like you're selling a course where people can download the course, maybe you don't want them to adjust quantity. So that's up to you, all right? Then here you can choose, do you want to collect tax automatically, or are you going to do it differently? This is always good practice to click this. All right, and you're gonna collect clients' addresses. This is only if it's important to collect the address. Do not collect client addresses if you don't actually need it. So, but if you're selling something that you need to ship to the client, maybe this is an e-commerce store, you might want to click this and say, yes, I want to collect the addresses. I will leave it off for now. right? Do you need clients to provide a phone number? This is only required. I mean, all of these things, only really click them if you need them, all right? If you need a client's phone number because you need to maybe follow up on a payment or something like that, then you can click that. Other than that, I'll just leave that open. And the only thing I'm concerned about is to make sure that that text is collected, and that and then you can have a look here at what your payment page looks like. You can see what it looks like on a desktop, on a mobile device. This is what it will look like on a mobile device. You can choose your colors. Obviously, you don't select your colors here. If you don't like what these colors look like, you can adjust them inside of your dashboard, right? Inside of your dashboard, under where you set up your company, where you put in your logo and your company name. You do this right at the beginning when you're creating your profile, because whatever profile you've created, you would have uploaded a logo, you would have entered the business name, and this is what will appear on the payment page. You don't set this up at this place, right? At this location. Once you're happy with your link, you then say create link, and it's going to give you a link which you then need to remember, right? And the nice thing about this link, I mean, Stripe really makes things so easy, and it's definitely worth you registering. If it's not in your country, that you can register in Delaware, a business, so that you can use Stripe, because it's really the simplest as far as payment processing goes, right? So there's your link. You can just copy it and then email it to your clients, or attach it onto your website. So you can have a button on your website, and then you can add this link here, so that when people click the button, it takes them to this link. You see, now you've done your entire integration, no code, and you go to your website, you have a link that you put in there, and then people click on a button, and then boom, it takes them, and then everything is sorted. You've added your pricing, everything is managed in here, right? You can even do a QR code. So let's say you are selling certain products at the market, right? And maybe you're selling different products, and you can then say you want to create a QR code that works with this link. Click over there, it generates a code for you. You can download this image, and then you can print it on devices that you can put on your market, wherever you're selling, and people just come, they scan the code. This code immediately takes them to this payment where they can pay $100 directly into your account. Over here, you can pick the payment methods. These are always there by default, but of course you can manage, and you can choose and add different payment methods. Let's say you want to accept certain payments, you want to accept people paying in installments or whatever, you can manage that in here, and that will work. All right, a buy button is if you want to go back to coding and you want to create a specific Stripe button. You can go into buy button over there, and then it'll give you the code that looks like that, you see, and then you just sort of copy this code and you paste it into your website, so you can configure for a card, or you can configure like that, right? And you can see what your buy button looks like. So this is just like that. I think this is a larger one. This looks much, much better, and you can just copy this code. So if you copy this code and you paste it somewhere on your HTML, it's going to look exactly like that. And this button is going to be linked directly to your payment thing, and then when somebody clicks on this, it takes them there, and everything is sorted out, and the money goes directly into your bank account. So this is one of the best ways to do this no code. I'm not going to go into this buy button. I'm going to just close it for now, and I just sort of copy the code, right? So I've copied the code. Click on it, you copy the code. And let's say you go to any URL and you paste this code, which, like I said, you can email this code to your clients. You can include it and embed it into your HTML page as a link. Somebody clicks and then it takes them to this URL. You can be creative. You can embed this in your invoices. It's up to you how you work with a payment link. But you've got a link that when you give to someone and somebody clicks on this link takes them directly to your payment page. They can immediately put in their email address and pay, and then the money will be wired directly to you, right? The only now limitation with this, especially for us programmers, is when you're building this as part of an integration. Integration is not just about collecting money, it's keeping track of who's paid, who hasn't paid, and things like that, right? So this is where webhooks come in, and so that we can immediately, when somebody makes a payment, Stripe can inform us that the payment was successful, and we can maybe update the system to allow the user access to all of those things. And this must happen within a split second. It must happen very quickly, and that is where webhooks come in, and we'll cover that in the future. But as far as no code options for integrating payments, this is all you need to get started, all right? I'm going to go to the second part of today's tutorial, which is how to do this integration using code. All right, so if you do want to do a payment link, which I don't know why you wouldn't want to do that, and you want to make this really, really difficult, then of course you can actually code this and do this manually, and Stripe also shows you how to do that. All right, so let's get into how to do this using code. To do this using code, we're going to go back to the documentation. All right, and I'm going to link this in the documentation in the description of the video below. Right, so this is how to quickly get started with accepting a payment in Stripe. Right, and when you come here to this documentation page, they give you like example code that you can work with, that you can download. Right, but before you download, just make sure that the selection is the way that you want it. Right. So the architecture, you can use the JavaScript SDK, or perhaps you want to do this as a mobile application, perhaps it's on Android or iOS, just select accordingly. So if this is an Android SDK, you can then have it like that, and this will show you, this uses Swift and Placed. I'm going to go back to JavaScript SDK because I have no idea how iOS works. Or Android, for example. And then over here with JavaScript, then you've got options of the front end, based on your architecture. Are you using React? Are you using Next? So they haven't covered every one of them, but obviously HTML is the most commonly used, and HTML can actually interact with many other web platforms. So, for me, I'm going to stick to HTML because with HTML, I think it's going to work with Flask. Then over here, then you can pick different options of the back end, right? So you could have Ruby back end, and then it will give you Ruby code. You could have Node back end, and it will give you Node code. You could have PHP, and it will give, you understand? So we are in this channel mostly work with Python. And if you look over here and you look at Python, you'll see it's working with Flask. Right, so it's using Flask code, and Flask is something we're very familiar with. We work with a lot in this tutorial. In this channel, and that's what we're gonna go with. So when you do the selection with the coding, and again, this is also smart documentation, which means that even as it creates the code, it already injects the correct API key inside of the code. So you don't have to go back and look for your API key inside of your dashboard and be like, oh, where's my API key? Where do I find it? Let me search for it up there. You don't need to do that, because what the smart documentation does is, because you're logged in, and make sure you reach this page when you're logged in, right? It will actually just pull the API key for you. So the API key that you see over here is the actual API key. This is of course a test API key, so I'm not worried about displaying it over here. Whether you pay into my account or not, it's not even real money, all right? And then once you're done with that, you can see the code, and there's a lot. I'm not going to even go into trying to explain this code, but I'm just going to show you how to implement the code that Stripe provides. Okay. Now, once you get this code, you can see there are different files. There's a server file, which is a file that actually initiates the Flask application. There is a checkout HTML file, which is the actual HTML page that gets rendered when you make a payment. There is the JavaScript file, which actually deals with managing the SDK and actually submitting to Stripe the payment when somebody clicks a button, getting the feedback whether or not it was successful, whether it was successful, and so forth. And then you've got your CSS, which manages the styling, how the page looks, because the styling has to be consistent with Stripe. And so all of these files are created for you. And when you're happy with your selection at the top, you see the button that says download full app. You can just say, boom, click that button and download the full app. When you do that, it's going to download for you a Stripe sample code zip file, all right, that you see over there. This zip file is actually a file that includes all of these files that are here. Okay, it's a zip folder that includes all of these files that I've just shown to you. Once you get this file, you're going to obviously need to unzip it, and I've already done that for you in the background, and this is what the file looks like once you download it. Okay, I've just renamed the folder Stripe because I didn't want a long name to deal with all the time. If you look at it, there's a folder called public, and inside of that public folder, here's your CSS file. All right, so this is directly the way it is from Stripe. I didn't change anything on this file. Here's your checkout.html file directly as it came from Stripe. I didn't change anything on this file. and your JavaScript file directly as it is from Stripe. Okay, you don't need to change anything on this file. The only thing you need to do is to think around the port that you want to work with. If you want to use a different port, because I actually wanted to use a different port, so I actually just edited the file a little bit and changed places where the port was referenced and just change it to a different port. You don't need to do that. You can just work with whatever port, you can just work with the file exactly as it is. However, because I work with a virtual server, there's a couple of things that I just want to demonstrate to you that were missing in the file that I had to add manually, right? The first one is, actually I should have had this in the README file, right? So definitely before you run the server over here, make sure the path to the public is accessible, and use sort of direct path links, path instead of relative. Okay, what this means is I had a bit of a challenge because I tested the code, and one of the problems was obviously inside of the server.py file, you can see the API key is exactly as it is. I didn't change that. But where they initiate the Flask application, if you look at the code that's provided from Flask, the way they initiate the Flask application at the top is that they just say that the static folder is public, and they just name it as public, and then the template folder is public. Okay, so what I did here is I just created an actual direct path to the public folder, because I'm working with I'm not doing this on my MacBook. I'm doing this on a virtual server, because as usual. And so with virtual server, sometimes you need to actually specify the path, the direct path, otherwise it doesn't find it. So I just specified that here, and you can test it and see if it works first. If it doesn't work, you can just try the code as it is. If it doesn't work, that could be one of the things you need to update. The second thing that you definitely need to update, now this didn't work without me updating this, I can guarantee you that, is at the bottom over here where they say app run and they just specify the port. Okay, please also specify the host, and you can specify the host as 0000, because sometimes Flask gets confused as to what the host is if you do not specify the host. All right, and you can just say 000, because what this will do is that it will find the direct host from where you are, the machine you're operating from, and it will do that in the background, and then it will serve this application correctly to the right IP address. Okay, so the code here did not have the host specified, and this code doesn't run without it. So just make sure that you just add host, and then you put and then you put port. Those are the only things that I found. I had to edit on the code from Flask to get it to work. All right, and inside of the README file, we can go through the README file to see what is a README file in here. Okay, so the README is not specified there, but I'll just show you on my own device right here. So to get you started, the other thing also that is not included in the README file is the environment. Okay, this is very, very important. If you run Python applications, you need to run them inside of an environment. Okay, so what you need to, because you could have been running Flask somewhere else and you downloaded a different version somewhere else, and you don't want your versions confused, because you can see that this file comes with the requirements.txt. You need to download specific versions of these libraries so that you don't have an issue with running the application, so that it works exactly the way it was designed. So this is missing as well from the documentation from Stripe. So it's very, very easy to get a virtual environment set up. You just basically type inside of your, so where are we? So let's say we are in here. All right, so you just basically type in here, you say virtual env, and then you give it whatever name of the env. So I decided to call mine Stripe env. You can call it anything that you want. Okay, so this can be whatever name you want, as a virtual env, right? And whatever name you want, env at the end, and then run the command and create that environment. Okay, I've already done that, so you don't need, so I'm not going to do it again, but you will need to do it. So after you've done that, then you're going to need to activate the environment by running this command that says source whatever you called your environment and then bin activate. Okay, this activates your environment, and once your environment is active, you will see it like that over there that your environment is active, you'll see it listed at the end there like that, right? So Stripe env is active. So once you've done that, then you need to do pip install minus r requirements.txt. In the documentation they say do pip3, right, which is correct, but because we are working with a virtual environment, we don't actually need to do pip3. We can just use pip because we are working now inside of the virtual environment, right? So you need to then run this command pip install minus r requirements.txt. What this does is that it goes into your requirements.txt file, which comes already with when you download the entire folder, and then it installs all of these files, which is what you need. You can see Flask over there, you can see Stripe, but you can see a very specific version of Stripe and a very specific version of Flask, which is important, right? Because this is what maybe the application was tested on, and this is how it was built, because the versions are changing all the time and they're not always backward compatible, right? So you need to install the correct versions. Excuse me. So once you've done that, like I said, add the host. This was a breaker. The app didn't work without it. Then once you do that, then you can just run the application over there, So you just say export, like here. You say export Flask apps, server.py. Excuse me. And then once you do that, and then you just run. I've decided to, like I said, I'm running it on a different port. It's up to you which port you want to run it on, right? So once you're running it, actually, I'm not going to do it like that. Let me change that and say Python. Let me run it like this. So actually, let me update this and say Python server.py. All right, because of the way I've specified the host, right? Server.py, that's better. So this is slightly different. You will see it's now telling me exactly where it's running on my virtual server IP address, whereas when I was trying to run it the other way, which was just specifying the port like that, you could see it was struggling to find that. And if I actually go to my server IP, let me see if it'll find it. You can see my server IP doesn't find it on this 178 because it's a virtual. It's a virtual server, or a droplet, what you call a virtual private server, right? So when you run it the way it's described in the documentation, it doesn't quite work. Just run it like Python server.py so that it will pick up from what you've specified in your server.py what the host is. Otherwise, you can specify the host when you're running it inside of the line, where is it? Inside of you can specify, here, you can, okay, now I've removed this, but where you specify the port, you can also add an extra variable for the host so that you get the correct host. But nonetheless, this is working fine. So I'm going to go and refresh. You can see now immediately when I refreshed, this is now our payment page and it works. So this is exactly how to do this, with code. Now you can, let's say you've integrated this into your application. The way you would have done it is here where it says where the HTML is, the checkout.html, this part, the form, this entire payment form is what you can embed somewhere inside your application. So you could be running, there could be many things that you're doing inside of your Flask application, and then when it gets to the part where you need to collect the payment, then you embed this part into just this section and make sure that you are the script is running at the top there, that it can find the script, and that you can get your style sheet as well, and everything else is working correctly, right? And then once you've done that, you can a user that comes in here can process the payment, and we can test it. So I'm going to try and test it. I'm going to say tester 2 at whatever. I actually tested it earlier on with tester 1, which is why I was here on this payments page. So if you go into payments, and earlier on today is the 14th of October, I tested it with this $14 is the amount which they actually have over here. So this is where you can specify the amount that you're charging the person return $1,400. So obviously over here, what you can do is, if you were integrating this into like an e-commerce platform or something like that, perhaps you would have, you could have calculate the order amount, and then over here, based on, whatever the client is trying to pay for, whatever the client is trying to pay for, you would then maybe go into your database and find the price for it and then return. You can see this function is just returning a constant amount, but this is where you would integrate a logic that would allow you to like collect from the database how much must be charged, and then you can return that exact amount. Remember, you're returning it in cents and it's an integer, so 1,400 is $14, right? And maybe you might want to also display this in the HTML so that people can see how much they are paying. I think that's the other thing that's lacking, but obviously maybe you would have displayed it in the previous page, and this is just the payment page, but you might want to edit at the top as well so that people know exactly how much they're paying. And you can see this is quite hectic, but for e-commerce platforms and more complex solutions where you can't build the no-code option, you might want to use this version, all right? And in next week's video, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to actually build a website where we've got multiple products and prices, and then we can go through how to actually calculate the different prices. For that, you probably need a database and things like that. So maybe you need something like, a Django application for that, because you want to be able to access, a database and authentication and so many other things. And perhaps we'll cover that in next week's tutorial, but this is the most basic way to do it. And I obviously don't like this Flask way of doing it. I mean, I don't like the Stripe way of doing it. There's errors with the code, like for example, if you do test it too, I'll just show you quickly. You can use even a fake email, but I want to use a correct email. And then you can use a test card, okay? So if you want to test your integration, you can use a card number 4242, just lots of 42s until you've entered 16 digits. So 4242, 424242, that's it. And then the expiry, you can just select any date in the future. It doesn't matter what it is, all right? So the month can be 04, and then the year today is 2023, so we can just pick 2025, okay? Any date in the future will work, okay? But if you pick 21, for example, it will fail. And CVV can be anything. You can enter your favorite digits, so you can enter like 5, 6, 7, it won't matter, right? And then you can pick your country, and then you can choose to pay now, right? So you'll see over here that this actually has an error. It takes us to a page that can't be reached, which means they haven't, the success or the failed page is not built properly, or perhaps the JavaScript is just not being read properly in the page. I can't be sure what it is, but the problem is that, probably we need to integrate some of these. I suspect it's the JavaScript and the way we are, we are referencing it, all right? But the system as is with just Flask, as you can see, the way I've just copied and pasted it, you need to do some modifications. But the good thing is that the payments actually go through, right? So this was the last payment here for $14 with tester 1. I'm going to refresh this page. So the payment it went through, and it's successful, and you can see there it is, 14 October. Now there's 2 of them, and this is tested 2, which means that this works without a hitch. So the only thing is probably just to adjust how the success and the you can see it takes us back to localhost 8116. So probably this is how I can search for localhost over here, and you can see there it is, okay? So it's the way it's referencing, so maybe what you need to do is to replace all the local hosts with your actual IP, because I think this is the problem. This is why it's doing that issue. So why it's making that issue. So with that, I think I'm going to call it a day. And I've shown you 2 things. I've shown you how to actually accept payment with Stripes. You can see the no-code version works really well when you got one price you're charging for everything. Because with the no-code version, what I've demonstrated to you, you're going to need to create a different payment link. If you have different prices, for example, let's say you got an e-commerce store, something like that is not going to work for an e-commerce store, because you could be selling 20, 30, 40, 60 different things with different prices. So this is not going to work. But if you're selling a book, or you're selling a course, or you're selling something that's just very specific and it's just one item, you just need to one payment link. This is a no-code version. It's just go create that link, the best way to collect the money. When you've got something like an e-commerce store, for example, this is where you're going to need to code this in, because you might need to programmatically get your price based on whatever the person is buying, right? And currently, I've just shown you how to do one price, which is what is in the documentation. But of course, you would have a database at this point. You'd be able to know which page the person is on, and you'd be able to know what price should be valid for that page. And then you would be able to just send, this return order amount, calculate order amount. You would just replace that with the actual, amount based on where the client is at that point, right? So you can edit this code to fit that, and then you can get that. But either way, I'll try and do a tutorial in the future where I actually show you with a real business, which has different variable prices, how to actually get that done. So maybe we'll do that in next week's tutorial, where I will manually do the integration in an existing application, right? And with that, I'm going to call it a day. It was really fun, guys. I hope you enjoyed this, and at least you can get started with Stripe. Make sure you subscribe so that you can follow along with the rest of the tutorial.